Visualize yourself getting the opportunity to stand in front of a black granite wall that appears to be a huge gash in the ground. Stepping closer to the wall, you can see thousands of names engraved into the black granite, each with one of four different symbols that contain a different meaning. Looking beyond the names of the wall, you can see your own reflection staring back at you as if you have traveled back in time and placed yourself in the soldier's shoes yourself. Many memorials have been created in order to honor things such as war and catastrophes, as they have shaped the U.S. into what it is today, as it has persevered and brought about something beautiful to honor it. As a student who recently got to witness this beautiful memorial on a school trip, I became engrossed by its deep history and learned about why it was created and what it honors. To understand the depth of the Vietnam Memorial, it's important to acknowledge the history in its full and the impact it has on society. First, I will begin by explaining the Vietnam War history and its effects, followed by describing the design of the memorial and who created it. And lastly, finishing off by explaining why the Vietnam Memorial is highly visited and considered a place of remembrance. To begin, I will start off by explaining the Vietnam Memorial's war history and its effects. According to the Magmatic series, Essentials Timeline, published in 2025, the Vietnam War started in 1945 and ended in 1975, and it was described as being a deadly conflict that embodied the global struggle of communism and capitalism. The war began when North Vietnam, who was considered The war ended when North Vietnam, who was supported by China, attacked South Vietnam, who was supported by the United States. As the years continued, North Vietnam would launch guerrilla-style attacks on South Vietnam, which would call for the United States to render aid. In the coming years, North Vietnam would respond by launching attacks on U.S. ships in the Gulf of Tonkin. This would result in the President Lyndon B. Johnson to order a resolution. This resolution would be called the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. The resolution would allow for the United States to have more involvement in South Vietnam without an official declaration of war in place. However, this would spiral into another operation called Rolling Thunder, which would lead to more deadly conflict and opposition to the war back at home. In the last years of the war, presidency would shift over to Richard Nixon, who would pull U.S. troops out of South Vietnam, leaving South Vietnam completely defenseless against North Vietnam. This would end the war, with Vietnam being completely unified under communist rule. Now that we have described the history of the war, it's time to pay tribute to the designer of the memorial. The designer of the Vietnam Memorial, also known as the Wall, was 21-year-old architect student Maya Lin. This design was not bestowed upon Maya, rather it was chosen from an array of designs in a competition held by the Vietnam Memorial Fund in 1982. Her design was a simple and minimalistic approach that caught the eyes of many, as it was constructed to be partially built into the ground. Her design was 246 feet long and featured a black slab of granite that had engraved 58,281 names, in chronological order instead of alphabetically, for visitors to see the exact time the person perished. Alongside these names, each would have a star. A diamond would signify that the person was killed in action, while a plus sign would consider it to be a person missing in action or a prisoner of war. However, a cross will also indicate that the person was missing in action and then soon found to be alive. And lastly, a circle, which has not been used on the wall yet. Because of the reflectiveness of the granite, the visitors are allowed to interact with the wall in many ways, as mentioned before, whenever they see the reflection. However, this is not the only way that people have responded to the wall. People are allowed to take a pen and paper and scratch a name off the list in order to take a piece of the wall with them, or leave something in return, which would be collected at the end of the day. Now that we have walked through the design of the wall, we will explore why the memorial remains an important part of remembrance. The Vietnam has an important impact on society and on veterans who have served, and it is highly visited because of the meaning it has and the emotional impact it carries. However, this is not the only memorial in the vicinity that encourages people to come and connect with. As said before, people have placed themselves in the shoes of the soldier once they see the reflection in the granite. However, this is not the only way people have been affected emotionally. It's become standard for visitors to leave something for the soldiers who have served in order to repay them for their sacrifice. Many visitors will also do this at the Vietnam Veterans Women's Memorial, which is there to honor the nurses who sacrificed their well-being in order to treat those who had been injured in the war, by leaving something as simple as a hair tie for them. This beautiful memorial has a rich history from its creation to its impact on society, with each serving its own role. The Vietnam Memorial continues to stand as a reminder of the immense sacrifice many had to make during the Vietnam War, and all of these tragedies that happened during it, while also providing support for those who have lost a loved one or who have served. Each name engraved into the darkness of the black granite is one that will not be forgotten as they continue to live through us as we see them in ourselves.